Good evening, I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Prince Rupert, British Columbia today to meet with coastal First Nations regarding their many concerns on a proposed pipeline from Alberta to BC's west coast and a possible lift of the oil tanker moratorium. Carney started out with a photo op of choosing a pastry at a local bakery, but he was also there to meet with some coastal First Nations after the Liberal government angered chiefs in late November. That's when Carney's federal government signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta to build a proposed oil pipeline from that province to the west coast. The MOU also promised to rescind an oil tanker ban on the north coast. Marilyn Slett is the chief counselor of the Heiltsuk Tribal Council. She told reporters they had a productive meeting, but their opposition to an oil pipeline has not changed.
Coastal First Nations, along with Tlaxcalans and the Haisla Nation, oppose any project that proposed to bring oil tankers to the north coast. We reiterated that there is no technology that can clean up an oil spill at sea, and that it would take just one spill to destroy our way of life.
BC's Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief Terry Teegee joins us now with his thoughts on Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit with chiefs and overall plan. He joins us from his office in Prince George. Chief Teegee, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, what's your position on the Prime Minister's plan to build a pipeline from Alberta to the coast of BC?
Well, I think certainly as many First Nations here in British Columbia's position is that we're not in support of a northern pipeline that goes to the northwest coast. And this was really, I think we need to be reminded that it was kind of a trade-off with the development of TMX, that a tanker ban was implemented back in 2019. This was also part of the 1985 legislation in regards to a tanker zone that was really about 100 kilometers off the shores of British Columbia. So our position hasn't changed, and certainly support not only the coastal First Nations, but also many of the First Nations that are concerned and on the mainland in terms of an actual right-of-way for a pipeline.
And is there anything the government can offer to gain support of First Nations in BC who will be directly affected by this pipeline if it gets built?
I'm not sure at this point. This discussion really was born out of Daniel Smith's, Premier of Alberta's position in an MOU with the Government of Canada to look at a potential pipeline. I think right now it's merely a pipe dream, and many First Nations don't have the appetite for an oil pipeline. Rather, many First Nations there in British Columbia are concentrating on many of the projects that are real. Out of the 15 projects that were listed last year by the Prime Minister as ones of national importance, 9 are here in British Columbia, and many of those have either participation or are led by First Nations. So I would say let's concentrate on those major projects that really are in reality.
Do you think this plan affects other First Nations rights in other parts of Canada?
Yeah, I think certainly. We've definitely heard from some of the First Nations in Alberta that are interested in oil development and oil pipelines. But at the same time, First Nations rights here in British Columbia are paramount in terms of how development occurs. We do have the United Nations Declaration Act federally and the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act provincially. So as far as we're concerned, these laws exist and requires are a free, prior, and informed consent in how development occurs. And that's not just pipelines, it's any major development in our respective territories.
And what's your message to the Prime Minister and Premier of Alberta who've been pushing this plan forward?
I think we need to not only concentrate on existing infrastructure, certainly the ones that exist haven't been fully utilized. There are ongoing projects that are real and need to be resourced and properly, brought forward in terms of consultation or free, prior, and informed consent in terms of how decisions are made. And I think it's really important to understand that First Nations here in British Columbia, we have many different arrangements. Many of the territories here, especially in the North Coast, are unceded, unsurrendered, continually occupied territories. And, our people have lived here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Election cycles come and go. But our First Nations who, have a right to say how development occurs will be here long after the Carney government is gone and long after the EB government is gone. We won't leave our territories. This is where we're born out of, and this is where we belong. So this is why the general public need to understand why many of the First Nations, such as the Coastal First Nations and many First Nations that are talking about oil development, are really wanting a careful, thoughtful, an important decision, especially how development occurs. So this is why we take it so important, and ultimately we do uphold our rights, title, and interests in many of these territories, including the North Coast.
Important discussion for sure there. Chief TG, we will have to leave it there, but thank you very much for taking some time for us today.
You're welcome.
The trial of a New Brunswick RCMP officer charged with assaulting a Mi'kmaq woman continued today. During a cross-examination, officers testified and alleged the victim hit the officer first. APTN's Angel Moore brings us part 2 of her continued coverage in New Brunswick.
Today at the Woodstock Courthouse, the Crown called witnesses Constable Joseph Sloan and Sarah Nunes. They both responded to the 911 call on June 13th, 2024. At Christina Gillis's home in Richmond Corner, New Brunswick. Gillis called 911 for help because her daughter was in distress and ran into the woods. Gillis, who is from the Eskasoni First Nation, testified earlier this week that Nunes was disrespectful and that Constable Andrew Whiteway threw her to the ground and punched her in the face multiple times. Whiteway is charged with aggravated assault. Sloan and Nunes also both testified on cross-examination that as Gillis approached Nunes, she pushed Whiteway's arm down and was under arrest. Nunes also testified Whiteway grabbed Gillis's arm and she hit the ground hard. Then Whiteway was on top of her back with legs and arms flying about. Nunes saw Whiteway punch Gillis in the face once. The trial continues this week with testimony from the defense. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Woodstock, New Brunswick.
The Mohawk Council of Ganawage is asking Quebec to address growing reports of businesses not respecting First Nations provincial tax exemption. Chief Jeffrey Diabo recently met with Quebec officials over the matter. He said this issue not only includes businesses around Ganawage. Chief Diabo said it also includes deliveries in Ganawage. And the issue has been popping up over the last month. Chief Diabo says Quebec will be meeting with Revenue Quebec to remind them of this tax exemption. The Mohawk Council is calling for community members experiencing this to report any incidents. Complainants can send an email to taxissues@mck.ca or report via phone at 1-450-638-0500. Chief Diabo warns that businesses need to do better and train their employees around tax exemption for First Nations.
We spend a lot of money in the Quebec economy. So for them to, to be doing this thing, they're putting themselves in jeopardy, because if we don't go to a certain business and they lose Ganawage, then potentially it could affect them, their bottom line. Now, the evidence of this is what happened after 1990. Once everything started opening up again, there were certain areas where Ganawage didn't go shopping, and businesses suffered. A lot of them ended up closing. A lot of them, their bottom line suffered. So this idea of respecting our rights comes into play, and then everything comes back, and they're more successful. So we're in a period now where people are starting to experience this again.
Swan River RCMP say they responded to a call at 8:35 this morning that said a school bus from the Sapatoyak Cree Nation had rolled. The bus was found in a ditch close to Swan River, which is 550 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. We haven't spoken to Sapatoyak officials yet, but the Swan Valley School Division says the bus had been transporting students from the Cree Nation and another local school to the regional high school in Swan River. The school division says 3 counselors and a knowledge keeper were deployed to the health center in town to provide emotional support for students and families. 14 students and the driver were taken to hospital. The school division says all on board were assessed at the scene and taken to the Swan River Health Center. 4 of them had what are being called significant but non-life-threatening injuries. The Vuntut Gwitchin First Nation in northern Yukon is reacting to new data out of Alaska showing the porcupine caribou herd is in decline. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game said last Thursday the herd fell from an all-time high of 218,000 animals in 2017 to 143,000 in 2025. Porcupine caribou are central to the Gwitchin people's identity and way of life in Alaska, northern Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. The Vuntut Gwitchin said in a release the decline is not unexpected, as their traditional knowledge has long shown herd populations are cyclical. Chief Pauline Frost says the Porcupine Caribou Management Board, which includes her First Nation, will meet next month in Inuvik to review management recommendations.
We're not in a crisis situation right now, so the idea or the objective is clearly to monitor carefully, work with our stakeholders, work with our partners, and then if we have to make changes, then we'll make those changes.
The board's harvest management plan currently supports continued harvest with no restrictions as long as the herd's population remains above 115,000 animals. After 120 years, Lacrosse will be making a return to the Olympic Games in 2028, but a potential roadblock may prevent First Nations from playing in the game they originated. We'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back to APTN National News. After 120 years, lacrosse will be back at the Olympic Games being held in Los Angeles in 2028. A potential roadblock set up by the International Olympic Committee may prevent First Nations from playing on the world stage in the game they originated. APTN's Rose Jacobs explains.
Wonderful pass. Give you a little toss. Yeah. Wonderful.
For the Haudenosaunee, lacrosse goes way beyond being just a game. Instead, it is deeply rooted in their culture, history, and identity.
I've been playing since I was, 3 years old. So I've been playing for a long time, and for us, when we're born as young boys, we get a cradle or a stick in our cradle. Sorry, a nice wooden stick.
Everybody like this, hand down.
The game is known as the medicine or creator's game and was gifted to the Haudenosaunee by the creator to be traditionally played with a wooden stick.
It has some magic. I like to call it magic, but it has an essence in it that helps the stick. That it takes the energy from your feet, from the earth, Mother Earth, passes it through your hands into the stick and into the ball, and it's the medicine ball. So that ball goes to somebody at the end of the game. Without that stick, you can't transfer that energy.
Many First Nations have their own connections to lacrosse. But for the Haudenosaunee, the game is used for healing and to spread good medicine.
In essence, it's a stick ball game, but for me as a Haudenosaunee Cayuga Nation member, it's a medicine game. It's a medicine game, and when I look at the ball, I look at the ball that we play with. There's medicine in that ball. There's medicine in the stick. There's medicine in our spirit. And so I want them to understand, like I say, that it has a totally different connotation.
The Haudenosaunee sent a lacrosse team to the 1904 Olympics, winning a bronze medal. But as one of the two teams Canada sent, lacrosse will return to the Olympics in 2028, having been absent since 1908. And the Haudenosaunee want to be there, but as their own team. First Nations people originated the game, but after colonization, the game was rewritten by non-Indigenous people. And in the late 1800s, First Nations were banned from even competing or playing with non-Indigenous people. Their appearance in the 1904 Olympics was an exception.
It always seems to be like in a little battle or a little challenge for us to kind of regain this sense of ownership relative to the game. And because right now, the way it's played, like, we don't make the rules. We don't set the rules. Even though it's our game.
The Iroquois Lacrosse Arena in Six Nations is home to some of the world's most elite players, many of which hope to make it to the world stage in 2028. Like the first captain of the women's box team, Fawn Porter.
We've always kind of been in the history books, hiding in between the lines, but to be at the world stage and just be recognized and have our own voice for that, that's all we want.
There are some Olympic-sized hoops that need to be jumped through to get to that world stage. The International Olympic Committee does not recognize the Haudenosaunee as a sovereign nation with their own National Olympic Committee, meaning they may not be playing under their own flag at the Olympics unless they receive an exemption.
I would love to see them embrace us and invite us and include us into the we'll say, these monumental mega event that everybody knows and plays on the world stage. And I think that would just instill a whole bunch of, we'll say, renewed hope, sense of pride, identity into our young people.
The men and women lacrosse teams have already played internationally under the Haudenosaunee Nationals name. The men's team have competed as a sovereign nation since the 1990s, and a women's team since 2005. The Haudenosaunee Nationals travel all over the world, like this past August at the World Lacrosse Men's U20 Championships in South Korea.
Bronze medals and silver medals, playing against all these other countries. I think it speaks for itself what we've done on the world stage as far as competing goes. So I think we definitely have a right to be in there. But yeah, as far as it goes by player, I think that's more of it's not individual because it is the organization, and the organization has proven itself to be at least top 3 teams in the world.
Porter remains optimistic that her team will make it to the LA Games.
We are going to be recognized, and we're going to use the sport for good and use it to help the communities and also just be there with the world stage, you know what I mean? Like, we're not coming with malicious intent or anything like that. We just want a seat at the table.
According to a CBC report, the Haudenosaunee Nationals organization have had informal conversations with the IOC, and they hope to eventually meet with the IOC's president in the new year to find a solution. The Haudenosaunee say, above anything else, they want to be acknowledged and involved.
It's important because that just tells the world that we're, you know, we have a seat at the table, and the world will recognize us as our own sovereign nation, our own sovereign people. Like, you know, there's Canada and the United States, but, you know, everyone hears of the Haudenosaunee, but there's no full recognition of us yet, and that needs to be done because, you know, it's just one step closer to either reconciliation or, you know, just recognizing people.
Without representation of his people, wooden lacrosse stick maker Daniel Henhock says he will be reluctant to watch the 2028 games.
I probably won't watch if they don't play. Like, there's nobody representing me and my people there, our nation, our game. Right? There's no point in really watching after that. I would love to see our guys play, especially on our team.
Regardless of the Olympic outcome, Randy Stats will continue his lifelong passion for lacrosse.
That's supposed to carry on with you until you pass away, and then when you pass away, you get a wooden stick that's buried with you. So the game is always with you, and it's in our blood.
APTN News reached out to the IOC for comment. It replied in an email statement that only National Olympic Committees can enter teams for competition. Without an NOC, it is up to Canada or the USA to include Haudenosaunee players on their national teams. Rose Jacobs, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Thank you, Rose. Face to Face is back with the first new episode of 2026. We'll give you a preview after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. April and her sidekick Sasha enjoyed a beautiful drive from Drift Pile to Canuso near Lesser Slave Lake, Alberta. April says she always loves to spend time with her granddaughter. Keep the pictures coming, April, and we love the extra details. If you have a picture you want to share, send it to us at share@aptn.ca. Now, let's look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, 5 degrees in Charlottetown, 3 degrees in St. John's, minus 22 in Nain, minus 12 in Cartwright, 3 degrees in Montreal, minus 3 for Val d'Or, London, plus 1 there, North Bay, 0 degrees, Elliott Lake, minus 7, Timmins, minus 18, Churchill, minus 18 and sunny, minus 13 for Norway House, Brandon, minus 7, Barons River, minus 14, Estevan, plus 1 there, Yorkton, 0 degrees, Stony Rapids, rainy and 0 degrees, L'Orange, minus 1, sunshine and 6 in high level, 3 degrees for Fort McMurray, Calgary, 4 degrees there, Edmonton, plus 2, Penticton, 4 degrees, Canal, plus 3, 4 degrees and sunshine for Prince George, Fort Nelson, plus 7, Watson Lake, sunny and 3 degrees, Mayo, minus 7, Wati, minus 12 and sunny, snowy and minus 3 for Yellowknife, Pawatuck, sunny and minus 28, Colville Lake, minus 25, Bakers Lake, minus 19, now yet minus 19 as well, Clyde River, minus 27 and sunny, Iqaluit, minus 14. Filmmaker, artist, singer, storyteller, and Abenaki activist Alanis Obomsawin sits down with our Nouvelle Nationale host Kim Sullivan for a special face-to-face in French tonight. Through more than 60 films made with the National Film Board of Canada and a significant body of visual works, she's shaped the nation's conscience. At 93 and still going to the office weekly, Alanis Obomsawin shares a childhood moment that shaped her lifelong fight against injustices.
Si les autres enfants me couraient après, puis me battent, puis ces choses-là, tous les jours, puis me criaient des noms, maudite sauvagesse sale. Alors, je pensais que quand la maîtresse sortait le livre L'histoire du Canada, je savais que j'allais me faire battre ce jour-là.
Non.
Oui. Puis, c'était la façon d'enseigner l'histoire du Canada qui était pleine de menteries et très mal... ça avait été écrit par les frères des écoles chrétiennes, ça, par l'Église. Mm-hmm. Et les jugements, puis de nous dire qui on était d'une grossièreté épouvantable. Puis moi, j'ai compris, à ce moment-là, je me disais, si les enfants entendaient une autre histoire, ils ne m'haïraient pas comme ça. Puis j'avais raison.
Stay tuned for our all-new episode of Face to Face with Alanis Obomsawin and Kim Sullivan coming up right after the news. And that's all the time we have for your APTN National News this Tuesday. We leave you tonight with a snippet of our celebration for John Kershane, who celebrated his 25-year work anniversary today. A big congrats to John. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy Miigwech, thank you for being with us. Have a great night.